Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast. Today we will talk about a day without technology. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. I woke up earlier than usual today, not because of my phone's alarm, but because of the light streaming through the curtains and the soft sound of birds chirping outside my window, and for a moment, I felt disoriented, reaching for my phone like I always do, only to remember that today, I had decided to spend 24 hours without any technology. A challenge I gave myself after realizing how much time I spend staring at screens, scrolling endlessly through social media, checking emails, watching videos, and feeling overwhelmed by constant notifications and digital noise. So with a deep breath, I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen, noticing how quiet the house felt without the usual background sounds of music or a podcast playing, and as I made myself a simple breakfast of toast, eggs, and coffee, I realized that even this small act felt different without checking my phone for messages or updates. And I actually tasted the food, noticed the texture of the bread, the warmth of the coffee, the smell of butter melting on the pan, all things I usually ignore in my morning rush. Then I decided to take a walk outside to clear my mind, something I rarely do without listening to something in my earbuds, and at first it felt strange, almost uncomfortable, to be walking in silence, with nothing to distract me from my thoughts. But after a few minutes, I began to notice the details of the world around me, the rustling of the trees, the distant sound of a dog barking, the laughter of children playing at the park, the way sunlight filtered through the leaves creating patterns on the sidewalk, and I smiled at a neighbor who was watering her plants and she smiled back and said good morning, and we talked briefly about the weather and the flowers in her garden, which might seem like nothing, but in that moment, it felt real and grounding, and I kept walking, feeling more connected to the space around me, eventually arriving at a small bench near the lake where I sat and just watched the water move gently with the breeze, something I hadn't done in years, and as I sat there, I took out a notebook I had brought with me, something I used to carry all the time before I replaced it with digital apps, and I began to write down whatever came to mind, thoughts, feelings, memories, things I had been too distracted to notice in my own life, and the words flowed easily, without pressure. And I felt a kind of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Then after a while, I walked back home, feeling lighter, and once there, I decided to clean my apartment, not because I had to, but because I wanted to, and I put on some comfortable clothes, opened the windows to let fresh air in, and started organizing shelves, dusting surfaces, washing dishes, even rearranging the furniture a bit, and as I cleaned, I found old letters, photos, and notebooks that made me smile and remember different parts of my life that I had forgotten, and the memories made me feel more like myself, and after cleaning, I felt proud of the space, like it reflected a calmer version of me, and for lunch, I cooked a new recipe using ingredients I had at home, without watching a tutorial or looking up instructions, just trusting my instincts and enjoying the process, and the food turned out better than I expected, and I ate it slowly while sitting by the window, watching people pass by and listening to the distant sounds of the city, which seemed less noisy than usual, or maybe I was just more aware of the quiet moments, and afterward, I sat down with a book I had started months ago but never finished, and I read for hours without interruption, fully immersed in the story, forgetting the time, turning pages without looking at a screen, and when I finally looked up, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with warm colors, so I went to the balcony and sat there, watching the sunset with a cup of tea, just breathing and reflecting on the day, and I thought about how much I rely on technology for entertainment, communication, information, and how often I feel drained by it, constantly switching between apps and messages, but today had been different, simpler, quieter, more intentional, and it made me wonder what it would be like to create more space in my life for these moments, not just once as a challenge, but as a habit. So I wrote in my journal about everything I experienced, what I felt, what I learned, and I realized how good it felt to just be present, to listen to my thoughts, to move through the day without rushing or multitasking, and even though I missed some things, like music or talking to a friend online, I didn't feel empty without them, I felt full in a different way, and as night came, I lit a candle and sat in the dim light, thinking about how much I had been missing while glued to my devices, and I promised myself that even when this day ended, I would keep some of these habits, like taking walks without my phone, writing in my notebook, reading real books, talking to people face to face, enjoying meals without distractions, because this day had reminded me that there's a whole world beyond the screen, and it's beautiful, quiet, and full of meaning if I just take the time to notice it. So I went to bed feeling calm, not anxious or overstimulated like usual, and as I closed my eyes, I felt truly at peace, thankful for this simple but powerful experience of living one day without technology, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. So we come to the end of our podcast today. Thank you very much for completing the episode, and we'll see you in the next one. See you soon.